You're listening to Gratitude Space Radio. Discover more at gratitudespace.com.
What if the word gratitude, a word we hear all the time, maybe so much that it's kind of lost its punch, is actually one of the most powerful tools for, changing your entire life? In this explainer, we're not talking about some fluffy, feel-good platitude. No, we're actually going to follow one person's incredible story to see how this simple idea became an absolute lifeline.
Just let that sink in for a second. Gratitude was the hand that helped me crawl out of depression and anxiety. For the person who wrote this, Shannon Holliday, this wasn't just some nice quote for a poster. This was her reality. It was literally a lifeline. And that profound, life-altering impact is exactly what we're going to unpack here.
So let's do it. Let's follow that path and see for ourselves how a simple change in perspective can lead to such a massive change in a person's life.
To really appreciate the light, you have to understand the darkness, right? So we have to start where this story begins, in a place of really deep struggle, long before gratitude was even on the radar. And look, the challenges here were just immense. We're talking about a battle with deep, deep depression, crippling anxiety, and a history of abuse that all led to a suicide attempt. It's so important to see this because it shows you the true depth, the real rock bottom from which this journey had to begin. And then, the pivot. This wasn't some slow, gradual thing. It was a conscious, deliberate choice to completely change the way she was thinking. This right here is the moment where everything starts to turn around. And what's so powerful about this is just how clearly it lays out that pivot. It's a conscious decision to step away from that all-too-familiar downward spiral of snowballing negative thoughts, where one bad thought just triggers another and another, and instead create a new default setting, an automatic instinct for gratitude. It's all about deliberately focusing on what you have, not what you're missing. And wow, here is that pivot in action. After the absolutely devastating loss of her parents, it would have been so easy to focus only on the pain. But instead, Shannon managed to completely reframe it. She found gratitude for having experienced such a profound, deep love in the first place. That's just a remarkable way to find the beauty that can exist right alongside the loss. So a mental shift is one thing, but how do you actually make it stick? How does a moment of clarity become a consistent daily habit that you can actually rely on when things get tough? Well, as with anything, it all comes down to practice. And this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do you take this amazing idea and actually weave it into the fabric of your everyday life so it becomes second nature? Well, the process was broken down into these 4 really clear steps. First, you start with the foundation, consciously celebrating what you already have. Then you move on to what's probably the hardest part, actively looking for the beauty, even in loss. From there, it's about training your eyes to see the wonder in the everyday, mundane stuff. And finally, you amplify it all by sharing that gratitude out loud with other people. And here's the thing that's so freeing about all this. It doesn't have to be some big, complicated thing. The entire practice is really just about a shift in your attention. It's about pulling your focus away from the big, overwhelming problems and onto the small, simple things we just so easily overlook every single day. And here are some perfect examples from Shannon's own life. These aren't huge, lottery-winning events. They are these simple, fundamental things. Having people who care enough to check in on you, being able to get clean drinking water right from the tap, having a safe, sanitary place to live. These are the absolute building blocks of a grateful mind. What starts as a quiet, internal practice rarely ever stays that way. Inevitably, it starts to ripple outward, and it begins to affect everything and everyone around you. And this is one of the most powerful results. When you change your own internal world, your external connections, your relationships with people, they just naturally start to get stronger. And here's the reason it works. Gratitude basically makes you a better observer. You start to really see the effort other people are making, the small acts of kindness, the thoughtfulness. And by simply acknowledging that, by saying thank you, you reinforce and deepen those bonds. It's that simple. And this is just such a beautiful evolution of the whole thing. What started as a personal mission to, in her own words, kill entitlement, just naturally grew into something that started to inspire the people around her. The practice became less about just the self and more about spreading that positive energy outward. And here's the proof in the pudding. By sharing her daily gratitude on Facebook, she started getting messages from friends saying how much it was helping them. People who said her posts helped them get out of their own heads and shift their own perspective. A personal practice had literally become a form of community service. Okay, but there is a really, really important distinction we need to make here. This is not about pretending everything is perfect all the time. Let's talk about a very common trap on this journey. And that trap is called toxic positivity. It's this total misunderstanding that if you're grateful enough, it should just magically erase all your bad moods and negative feelings. It's this false idea that you should never feel sad or angry or hurt. And honestly, it's a trap that can make you feel even worse. And this is the absolute core truth of it all. Life still hurts sometimes. That's just a fact. Practicing gratitude doesn't make you immune to pain. The whole point isn't to ignore or push down difficult emotions. It's about learning how to hold space for both hardship and thankfulness at the very same time. So, a much healthier way to think about it looks like this. It's about being gentle with yourself on those tough days. It means letting yourself really experience your emotions without judging them, and then letting them go when you're ready. And maybe most importantly, it's about giving yourself permission to not feel guilty for just being human and having a bad day. So, as we've seen, this whole incredible transformation didn't start with some huge dramatic gesture. It started with a simple, quiet shift in focus, a conscious choice to notice the small, the simple, the overlooked things that are all around us. And so that brings the question right back to you. After all this, what is just one mundane thing that you can find a little bit of beauty in today?
This is Gratitude Space Radio. Thanks for being here.
Share the love, listen on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
And explore more at gratitudespace.com.